Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Social Club at the End of the World. Happy to be here, joined by daughter Alice, Princess Alice. We've got Alex in Texas. We've got Adam in the state of Washington, the smoky state of Washington. Dan in Chicago. Jason in Long Beach, California. And my sister, Hurricane Victoria, who I presume is in Oklahoma. Alrighty, good deal. So welcome, everyone. I just wanted to say a few kind of opening comments, and then we can just, open it up for general discussion. But with things falling apart as quickly as they are, we simply have no time for anything other than solutions. It's time for us to make a rapid switch into Action Jackson mode, and solutions that are commensurate with the magnitude and scope and scale of the problems. And so I'm talking geoshading, holistic land management to sequester carbon, developing fusion energy so that we essentially have free electricity with which we can power the plants to sequester massive amounts of carbon, methane, etc. Water. Holistic ocean management. That's right, desalination. All the things that we need to do, not to mention just transforming our lifestyles, our economy, our cities into our colleges, et cetera, et cetera. So many things that need to happen essentially all at once, or as quickly as possible, starting with geoshading, cooling the planet, forcibly cooling the planet, because we're just, the runaway overheating is killing us. And so to get all those things done will obviously require a massive organization and mobilization of resources. So that requires essentially a political transformation and or a cultural transformation, but a major transformation to the very roots of our society. And so the action that we're going to take starting in 2 weeks from today will be a campaign at the Microsoft campus, the main Microsoft headquarters, where we'll all be decked out in our Star Wars costumes, Darth Vader, Princess Leia. We'll have Obi-Wan Kenobi there. Another guy who will either be Chewbacca or Han Solo. I don't know which. But anyway, we're going to get these badass lightsabers, and it'll be a real performance. Great professional sound system, broadcasting both music and our own voices.
You're all welcome to join.
Everyone's welcome to join. And,
of course.
you can, and there's different ways to participate. You can participate virtually. We'll be having hangouts. We were kicking around some ideas a couple 3 days ago about that. Those ideas have evolved since then. We can talk about that. But basically, for people, there will be two main signs. One is the sign, which I can pull up and screen share an image of. That's basically the abrupt climate change sign. I'll show an image here in a second of me when I was at Stanford University. With this sign earlier this year. And then another sign, which I'll describe in a moment. And we'll be actually giving out lightsabers to the Microsofties, which they can take back to their offices. So abrupt climate change, which side are you on? And then another sign that says, that's Princess Leia, with a giant speech balloon saying, "Help us, Satya Nadella. You're our only hope." So that's the, that's the essence. That's kind of the core messaging. And what are we trying to achieve? What exactly are we trying to accomplish here? Get Microsoft's attention as a company, and then engage with the leadership led by CEO Satya Nadella. For Microsoft to commit to working with us to build out the collective intelligence platform that we need to co-create all of the solutions that we're going to need in order to save life on Earth, including geoshading, including our ecologies, including fusion energy, all the myriad solutions. And since no one of us can do it alone and no one company can do it alone, we need a collective intelligence platform to organize ourselves, to bring us all together so that each of us can make all the myriad micro contributions that each of us is good at. I'm good at certain things. Alice is good at certain things. All of us are good at certain things. We need for us all to bring our puzzle pieces and threads together to weave the tapestry of the matrix of solutions. So the headline that we're putting out in the press release, the headline will be, former Microsoft executive rallies the tech sector to join the race for solutions to climate change. The headline is very simple, right? And I see my sister Victoria nodding up and down. That's a good sign, because she's super good at communications and marketing. And you know, and the media, they need a simple, crisp headline that packs a punch. Again, former Microsoft executive rallies the tech sector to join the race for solutions to climate change. And with all this smoke that we're having in Western Washington, we're literally climate refugees as we speak. We left Seattle. The index air quality there, it's way worse than Beijing, China. People are going around with masks everywhere. We headed north. We're way up near the Canadian border to get away from all the smoke. So, and you can't escape it, but you can just go to places where there's relatively less smoke. But all that actually plays into our hand, because all the Microsofties are now, you know, everyone's talking about the smoke. Everyone in the Seattle area is freaking out about the smoke. It's now hitting home. And so with this, you know, we're going to be coming at them from this totally unexpected angle, right? You know, because their first reaction is, hey, it's not our fault. It's not our fault. Imagine Han Solo saying, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. Doesn't matter whose fault it is, right?
It's the reality.
And we need the smartest solutionaries. One of the signs we're going to have says, solutionaries are the solution. Solutionaries are the solution, right? There's a lot of solutions that have been discussed, that are, you know, been talked about, but we need the solutionaries of the world to come together with the benefit of a platform that brings us together and that does all the, you know, the connecting pipes to facilitate collective intelligence and the co-creation and implementation of solutions. So I just wanted to kick it off with those words. Anything to add, Alice?
Well, earlier on, before you came back, we were just talking about the effect that the government has on, you know, hiding the truth, etc. How people who live off of these catastrophes, and how the information's not getting out fast enough, and there's not enough influence yet for people to really understand. But I think the emergency is there. People want the change, whether they say it or not deep down inside. So again, I think it's really good that we focus on these solutions now, and we just get the energy level up, and we take action, because it's there. And yeah, so.
Beautiful. Alrighty, I'll go on mute and open it up. And for Alex's excellent suggestion, those who want to speak, just go ahead and type your name. Dan takes the lead there. Dan, go ahead, and anyone who wants to talk, just type in your name into the text.
Yeah. Okay. So keeping it within a positive solutionary mode. Let's say you go there, which you're going to do, and you are essentially trying to appeal to Microsoft executives, essentially to, you know, guys, help us out. Let's get this platform. We need your intelligence to contribute. So it may be the case that they do not respond in a positive fashion. So if that were to happen, I think it's important. You know, last week we had a little brief discussion about the difference between current employees of Microsoft and those who have retired, who are theoretically much freer to say things and volunteer to do things. And I think that's something to keep in mind. And finally, there's another aspect which may or may not be in play. If Microsoft as a corporation, you know, under Bill Gates, similar kind of thing with Google and all of these large tech corporations, you know, there's enough data out there to indicate that, you know, Central Intelligence Agency, National Security Agency, etc., have pretty much got their tentacles in all of these corporations. And most people understand that if there is an attitude that this is something which is not to be discussed, it won't be discussed in any kind of an official way. And keep in mind, again, going back to a little bit of the discussion last week, it's hard to think that a lot of people who actually work for Microsoft on higher levels, even on lower levels, you know, and I mean, again, you're talking about an extremely well-educated group of people, that they would not be tuned in on some level to what is probably happening. And yet again, you know, it's human nature not to, you know, put your head up when you kind of know it's going to be chopped off. And who knows, you might actually be wrong. You know, maybe they're telling me to shut up, and they could be right. So what I think is, so, you know, you go up there, you try, ideally in a perfect world, maybe it'll happen. You'll be able to get Microsoft higher level personnel willing to step out and say, yeah, sure, we're going to help out here. But if they don't, I think it ought to be pointed out, you know, the probable reasons why they're not willing to do so, and then to encourage retired personnel who have great abilities and are not necessarily, hopefully, under, you know, you got to keep your mouth shut about this till you die, these kind of secrecy. Okay, you know that's not the case. Great. So, you know, that's where I think you have to go to if it, you know, doesn't work out perfectly. And if it turns out that the retired personnel are afraid, then again, it's important to discuss why that might be. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to, I guess, Jamin.
It's Alice. Alice is up next.
Thank you. I think it's great, everything you just said. We've definitely been talking about, and when you mentioned it last time, it was great because we all agree, you know, people are afraid, they don't want to lose their jobs, they're still like stuck on that, and just having elders and youth working together is such an incredible thing. It's something that we've really taken out in the West, and now that the paradigms are shifting, and I went to Mexico recently, and just the families, it's like you learn so much more quicker being with the little kids and the grandparents and everybody together. So that's just a little, you know, detail about what you just said. For the action we're going to be taking, we actually talked about this morning. You know, having scientists, engineers, visual artists all coming together for the same cause, we're actually giving these people who are supposed to be very advanced, you know, intellectually and with their imaginations, but for some reason haven't come up with what Jamin and all this team is coming up with on a large scale, and that I haven't seen. You know, like I mentioned last time, I live in Europe most of the time. I have friends who are extremely involved. I grew up here, so, you know, I travel. I have this opportunity to travel around and see all the actions that are being taken globally. But I've yet to have seen something this large and organized, which is fantastic, because what it's going to do is connect what already exists. And this is what we've been talking about, that we don't have to invent everything. There are things that are already there and existing and function really well and are actually already in place. So that's fantastic. But what I wanted to mention about the Microsoft people, or whether it's Google, Amazon, Apple, whatever, we'll be giving them this full 360 degrees of something that they can bounce off of. So visually, they'll see plans, they'll see, you know, proof of take of action, where it's just going to be really easy. We're basically handing it on to them on a silver platter, where they don't have to think about it too much, and can keep going on their busy lives. I think that's an important thing to mention, that we've actually really been thinking about this, because we're not just like expecting them to stop everything and go with us. You know, I mean, there's a reality. People are still very asleep. People need their comfort. People want, you know, they don't want to be imposed anything or forced into anything. The idea is really to tempt them with something that is extremely logical, makes absolute sense, looks good. And it's, again, you mentioned the Emperor's New Clothes. And I think for me, a trick that I've really learned through my life is to make people think that they came up with it. Because our egos are not in this. This is not about us, like, we came up with this and this is ours. It's like, no, we're all here for the greater good of saving this planet. So egos aside, it's like whoever says, oh, eureka, I came up with something, and has the budget or has the right, you know, people to get involved, take it, run with it, and we'll be there to make sure that it makes sense, and, you know, we'll still be implied. But I think that's a, you know.
Beautiful. Thank you, Alice. All right. So I'll comment, and then I think we got Adam after me, and then Alex. So first of all, acknowledging your good point, Stan. The retired Microsofties definitely have a lot more freedom and flexibility, and, you know, you can't fire them, right? So that's a great point. And to that, I want to add that our being there, doing this, you know, I'll be having a lightsaber fight with Obi-Wan Kenobi in his brown robe. I'm in my Darth Vader. Princess Leia will be giving her characteristic speech, you know. But instead of, you know, Obi-Wan, my father asked me to come with this message, it'll be Satya Nadella, our mother, Mother Earth, asked me to come to you with this message, to invite you and all of Microsoft, and in fact, the entire tech industry, which you de facto lead, to join the effort to save life on Earth. When doing all this with the music and the performances and handing out lightsabers that flash, which then the Microsofties will take back to their offices and start, you know, swinging at each other, you know, in playful ways, the entire campus is going to be a buzz. I want to welcome my partner, Jamie Gilchrist, who just joined from Ohio. We got a couple of people queued up. We're kind of taking names here. So if you want to jump in, Jamie, just hold up 2 fingers and I'll put you on the list. And with all this that we're going to be doing, it's going to create tremendous buzz throughout the campus. And around the surrounding community, because word travels fast among techies. Word travels very, very fast. Okay, Jamie's taking a look. I'll add him to the queue. So you're going to have a bunch of tech bloggers, you know, from the very well-known, like John Cook and Robert Scoble, all the way to up-and-coming people who just started blogging last week. They'll be out there taking pictures, taking notes, having conversation, getting a lightsaber, and you know, joining the, you know, this conversation. And, you know, alternative viewpoints welcome, right? People who think it's a hoax, fine, come and, you know, tell us what part of this smoke in the air is a hoax. You know, we're all suffering under this massive smoke storm here in Western Washington from all the forest fires. So with all the buzz that's created, and this is another point that I want to make that's sort of an antidote to Microsoft's taking a pass on this, is we'll say, hey, Microsoft, if you take a pass, fine. We'll drive right across Lake Washington and invite Amazon to take the lead. And if Amazon takes a pass, we will, you know, go down to the Silicon Valley and offer the opportunity to Google, to Apple, to Facebook, to essentially whoever has the cojones to lead as a large tech organization. It's not going to take too much resource or time to build out the remainder of the platform for collective intelligence. And we're also going to have a big sign with a picture of Gary Kildall that will say, who wants to be the next Gary Kildall? That's if Microsoft takes a pass, right? He went, you know, and I'll let you look up the history of the IBM PC, and they basically had an opportunity to, Gary Kildall had an opportunity to be Microsoft, to be Bill Gates, and he took a pass, so Bill Gates jumped on it. So we've got a lot of ways to apply pressure, but the bottom line is that whichever company jumps on this will become a hero to all of humanity, and their products, their services, their brand will be preferred, massively preferred by all of us who are so painfully aware of what's happening to our planet, and we are becoming the majority, the vast majority, very, very quickly. So with that, I want to turn it over to Adam, followed by Alex, followed by Jamie, and then followed by Dan. I'll keep track of it all. So Adam, you're up. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, Jamie, thank you. Or Jamie. Hey, Jamie. Am I up on the screen?
Yeah, you're good. We can all hear you just fine. Go for
okay. It. So I wrote the A Case for Life video, and very soon, like in the next day or two, I'm going to put out another paper called To the Point. And then after that, I'm going to put out a paper called Collective Intelligence and the Road to Life Plan. And as you know, the Road to Life Plan relies heavily on collective intelligence. And it sets up a format for collective intelligence to use. The way I see it, I don't understand all the workings of collective intelligence yet. But the way I depict it, it's like it's set up with a bunch of rooms, and each room has a topic, and then those topics, the rooms are filled by experts, and I think that the retired people, whether they're from Microsoft or any place in the world, would be excellent people to fill in those rooms. And another thing that's good about them is they don't have to worry about money. So one of the things that I stipulate in the collective intelligence, as far as the Road to Life Plan goes, is there can be no influences in there. It has to be an unbiased setup. So there can't be any influences in there of money, and so that's one of the stipulations. And then I wanted to ask you a question, Jamin. Are you going to set up collective intelligence to be the hub site where for saving the world? Is this because that's what I'm describing in the Road to Life Plan, is that we can go to collective intelligence, actually radish.org, and that can be the hub for all this work, so we can start getting organized. And I know that we want to put the Road to Life Plan on there, so that'll be one way, and maybe it'll show people or help them get it set up.
Okay, great. Thank you, Adam. I'll answer your question when it's my turn up next. Right now, I just want to ask Jamie to please mute your microphone when you get a chance, and I'll turn it over to Alex. You're up, Alex.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Adam. Hello, Daniel. Hello, Jamin. Hello, Jamie. Hello, Jason. Hello, Victoria. Hello, Jamin, and hello, Alice. Hope you guys are all doing great. I didn't say hello. My only question, I have another question for you, Jamin. So now you have two questions. If I missed the last like 3 meetings or something before the last one, and if I remember correctly, there was not a bid to be solutionaries. There was a bid to end drug cartels. So all I want to ask is, like, what did you learn from that experience? Obviously, you're pivoting, but like, what were the failures of that experience? I don't fault you for trying. That's my question.
Actually, I don't. Okay, thank you for that question, Alex. Happy to respond to that. But Jamie is up next, and then I think Dan, and then I'll be happy to answer both those questions. So, take it away, Jamie. Okay, Jamie is out of his car right now. So why don't we go Dan, and then Jamie when he gets back. Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, and another thought in terms of solutions. One of the things that people are very responsive to in our culture and other cultures is the value of their assets. And it seems that real estate values in many parts of the world are really at significant risk, and particularly along coastal areas. So, you know, I sometimes talk with a friend who is a retired real estate person, and you know, we kind of, you know, and I'll bring up my climate change. I can't take it too far with him, but I bring it up, and you know, and make comments about, well, what do you think is going to happen to all the coastal real estate down in Florida? And he's pretty quick to say, it doesn't look good, blah, blah, blah. You know, maybe it's not a bad time to sell your property now or in the very near future before it's too late, when suddenly consciousness gets to a point where maybe we better get out of here and get some money for our real estate before it's too late. So what I'm, you know, what I'm thinking is that, again, there's probably many retired, and I do, again, underline retired, real estate people who might be willing to give some hard projections as to what's going to happen to your real estate values in Miami and other coastal places, New York City, Boston. They're all over the place along the coast. And then to say, this is what is likely to happen in a perhaps very brief period of time. We need to do something about this now. And again, if it's a working real estate person, of course, given, again, the way our culture is, it's so sociopathic, psychopathic, you know, they would just be thinking, a lot of them, in terms of, maybe we can sell this now, you know, let's not worry about what might be happening to, you know, the person who purchases it. But again, I do think, I just throw that out there as another example of where retired people can step up to the plate and say things collectively that those who are still involved in the work world for various reasons will not be willing to do so. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and I'm going to go ahead and mute out.
All right. Jamie, if you're ready, you're up next, followed by Jamin.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you loud and clear.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you, Jamie.
Okay, great. It's good to be back, folks. I've had really about 3 months of personal mayhem, all to the good, all to the good. Grandbabies and moving and just incredible amounts of stuff, all confluencing at the same time. So now I'm back and I'm focused. So it's good to hear everybody. I will be attending pretty much constantly from here on out. And the point I just heard everybody make, this is the kind of thinking that's needed. Real estate people to realize everything about their commission and their livelihood and the values that they hold so dear, how leverages them to be willing students in this class we're all taking together. Adam's point is so globally giant. It's like Jamin. It's like too big of a point for most people to comprehend, because the minutia is to tell the real estate people the sky is falling, because it is, and they start to act as if we can save Mother Earth to get to Adam's cash free and more than cash. He told me personally once what it was, a kind of an equal barter as opposed to a leveraged barter system where I give you 2 of these and you get 1 in return. To take value out and have relationships be the value. So I'm just glad to be back, and these points are just, you guys have done a lot of work and your messages is finely tuned since I've been gone. So it's good to see the growth, and I'm going to mute.
Thank you, Jamie. So I'm up next, followed by Jason. I just want to answer the two questions that were raised. First, Adam's question: will there be, a central website that will bring us all together for creating this collective intelligence and co-creating all the solutions? That was the gist of your question, right, Adam? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay, great. So, my plan is, basically, we've been developing the platforms for collective intelligence on radish.org, but it's nowhere near fast enough. We're a small organization. And so I'm inviting one major tech company to take the lead and create a forum of tech companies, create a coalition, get the whole tech industry involved in this. But no matter how we slice it, whether it's Microsoft.com, Radish.org, no matter what the website is, there will be one place to go to join the collective intelligence and be a part of it. And Adam asked, will it be the place where anyone can go and join in on the effort to save the world? The answer is yes. There will be certain rules and guidelines, of course. So
and categories.
Oh, absolutely. There'll definitely be categories. But that everyone can join, absolutely everyone can join. Obviously, if you break the rules and, you're being insulting or obstructionist or whatever, you might get a timeout, a short or long timeout. Anyway. But
sorry, and you mentioned it will be global. So if somebody's living in the desert and has some really specific terrain that he needs to care for, or needs to filter water of a very specific type, we really want to touch all those little minute, really difficult to answer questions as well, by having this global intelligence.
Exactly. So basically, same vision as always, but we've got to accelerate it. We've got to make this happen now. Alex, you asked a really good question about what did I learn from the experience of starting to focus on the drug cartels, which I started working on about 1.5 years ago. And so if you can think back in time to 1.5 years ago, it was a slightly different world. We didn't have quite as many outward manifestations of the destruction of life on Earth and the complete collapse of Arctic ice, jet stream, Gulf Stream, forest fires, hurricanes, etc. I mean, it was bad, but it wasn't quite this bad. And so most people were still living in denial. And so my reasoning was, all right, and there's this excellent book that I highly recommend called Don't Even Think About It: Why Our Brains Are Wired to Ignore Climate Change by George Marshall, an Englishman. And it goes through I see a thumbs up from Alex. It goes through excellent points as to essentially, we're wired for certain things, food, sex, shelter, kind of the obvious. Something about, there's some transparent gas way up in the sky that's going to affect us all by the year 2100. What? No, that just doesn't compute. Just doesn't compute. So my reasoning was we need that book also points out, okay, so if climate change is not going to wake up and unite humanity to take action, what does? And the answer is very simple. Enemy tribe coming to kill us and steal our women. Let's go get, we're cavemen. We're, this is universal. If there's an enemy tribe, so I figured, all right, what enemy tribe can at least get the ball rolling for this conversation? Criminal drug cartels. They've moved into the state of Washington. They're growing very rapidly. And so my reasoning was, we start by taking out the drug cartels, and I've actually got a plan for how to accomplish that, believe it or not. And we then expand that mandate from criminal drug cartels to all forms of organized crime. And then comes the key inflection point, all said in one sentence, mind you, including organized crimes against Mother Earth herself. And so we have the central focus, the central theme of eradicating organized crime. But I characterize it sort of as an off-ramp, where you first slow down from 65 miles an hour down to 45, then down to 35, and then after a third of a mile you're at a traffic light. the first step is criminal drug cartels. Everyone hates criminal drug cartels. They do human trafficking. They're ghoulishly violent. They're destroying entire countries, and it's just nobody likes them. So let's start with that one common enemy that everyone can agree we need to take down, and then expand from there. Well, now fast forward 18 months, here we are. The Mother Earth, life on Earth, is just essentially in free fall, catastrophic destruction upon disaster, and so now with the smoke storm in Western Washington, the moment is very ripe and perfect for us to wake up the Microsofties, current and retired, and in fact the entire tech community, and basically say, look, you know, normally we would rely on the governments of the world to lead this, but the governments of the world are
criminal drug cartels.
Well, they're all screwed up. I mean, many of them are in the pockets of organized crime. I mean, the whole oil and gas industry is one giant organized crime against Mother Earth. And who is our Secretary of State? An oil man. You know, look at the string of presidents, vice presidents, and other high-level officials who are absolutely in the pockets of the oil and gas industry. So with all that, bottom line, with everything that's happening right now, the moment is ripe to go straight to the final target, straight to the Death Star and blow it up. And that is taking out the organized crimes against Mother Earth through collective intelligence. So, Alex, did I answer your question sufficiently there? And feel free to unmute and jump in. I just want to make sure.
I guess what I was asking is like, no, I understand that point, but just a quick follow-up is, I've tried talking to people about this issue, and you mentioned like the forest fires, and maybe like events will continue to wake people up, but I think there's just a huge gap. There's a huge gap between, yes, it's a problem, and yes, we're all going to die in 5 to 10 years because of the Arctic melting, et cetera, feedback loops, et cetera. That gap is ginormous. And I've been to like environmental groups. Like I've been to Sierra Club, and I've been to 350 meetings in Austin, and I brought these things up. I basically bring up guys' points. And I'm completely dismissed. And I talk to people who've cared about the environment for 30 years. And I'm just saying, like, do you read, like I talk to people like, do you read the latest science? Like, so I just think like, that's what I'm saying is like, have you convinced anyone who wasn't in the whatever near-term human extinction, abrupt climate change, whatever you would call it, camp, from the, like, have you ever convinced someone to jump into that camp? Because that is a huge abyss. Yeah,
actually, what I tried to do was a sort of a baptism by fire hose, getting the Sierra Club of Northern California to cross that chasm, that abyss, by inviting Professor Guy McPherson to speak at the Sierra Club. He's actually been my guest speaker there 3 different times. And the first time was in April last year, April 2017. And we had quite a turnout. But the thing is, a lot of people in the audience, Sierra Club members, you know, in the very progressive San Francisco Bay Area, you know, they listen to this and they're kind of like, you know, deer in the headlights. And then they go home feeling kind of lost and hope they can just kind of sleep it off. So it's a very tough pill to swallow. So, you know, I don't know that I've ever, well, actually, one person who I don't know if convinced is the right word, he really convinced himself, is Jamie. I told him all about what was going on and showed him the facts and the evidence, and he got it right away. Jamie, maybe you can comment on that a bit later. You know, it's I'll just go back to my earlier point. I really think that it's just so clear now that things are falling apart and the destruction is just happening so massively and rapidly. We got some folks who've been waiting to talk for a bit. Did you want to just comment quickly, Jamie, before we pass it on to Jason?
I did want to make a comment on that statement. Who made that statement? Is it Adam?
Alex? It was Alex, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Alex, okay. That is a critical assessment he's made. And it's one of the things I think that we're all on this call, and those of us that are concerned about this, we've spent an awful lot of time in our lives and here together grappling with the, frankly, I consider it to be a relatively impossible hope that somehow we're going to get 6 or 7 billion people to agree, because greed, politics, sheer personal pleasure, you know, like Hitler's bunker, the 2 hours before they were all killed was an orgy. It's in the human nature to get as many berries as you can and hope someone solves the problem while you're doing it. So I have evolved my thinking, and it's unfortunate, but I think I'm right, and I'd like people to comment on this or at least digest it and bring it back up in the future. I think we really need to target better instead of trying to mass educate people that A, like never think about it, okay, so they're lost to us. B, don't want to think about it, so that's a contingency we can't help. C, people that go extinct and that's that, and they don't want to participate. And the list goes on and on. So I think the amount of receptive people is pretty small. It could be, honestly, globe-wise, it could be as small as 1 billion, which is a pretty small percentage of what's on this rock. Regardless of the amount of people that we could convince, we should, I submit, focus on gathering those who don't need convincing. The smart folks at Microsoft and the smart people in the Sierra Club. There's a lot of people in the Sierra Club that are in the Sierra Club so they can say they're in the Sierra Club. They're not out there sleeping in trees to keep the bulldozers away. The people that are doing the stuff, they may be a small contingency, but there's enough of us to create a groundswell. And the others that either don't believe or don't want to believe are going to watch. Not everybody believes we can get to the moon, or there'd be the internet. But everybody's seen us get to the moon, and we all got a smartphone now, don't we? And that was because a couple of brainiacs figured out a problem no one knew existed and then solved it. And that's the way I think we should approach this. That's why this Jamin's approach to Microsoft is fantastic. I come from law enforcement, and I'm not so sure that a good approach wouldn't be to ask all of these companies to put together a task force housed in a warehouse where they're all taking on the problem, because they all come from different minutiae specialties, something along those lines. But going to the Microsoft campus and getting in touch with the people that have the capacity to solve this and possibly the desire, I think is a really smart move. And I resign myself to, I'm not going to communicate with everybody. I'm going to communicate with people that are already communicating about this, because I'm running out of energy. I don't have the steam to teach a class to people that don't want to be in class. And I'm mute.
Very good, Jamie. Alrighty, so Jason is up next, and I think Dan after Jason. Yep, that's right. Okay, so Jason, take it away. Good to see you, buddy. Welcome.
What's up, everyone? Hey, Dan. Hey, Jamin. We've been here a while, huh, dude? So I just feel, I've been talking to Jamin on these calls for quite a long time. I am glad that you've come around to realize that your main issue should be climate change. Thank you, Jamin. And, it feels good being back and hearing people being positive about things, because to be honest, I've been gone for a little while, maybe to try to avoid it, but I stay plugged in. I get Guy McPherson's new little videos. I watch, Kevin Sandblum on Black Bear News just to sort of stay in touch and hear different articles. And I have to say, it's definitely looking bleak. It's definitely looking like if before you had wished that Guy McPherson was wrong and that this was all a bad fucking nightmare and that you're going to wake up one day and that you're going to be like, oh, everything's fine. That day has just passed, long past, and that you wake up every day and you realize that we live in this like deteriorating world. And, I don't know if it's possible to fix all this crap. I'd like to be positive. I think going and targeting people at Microsoft is a good is a good cause. I've even thought, I'm down here next to a bunch of military industrial complex people. Maybe I should start standing on their doorsteps and saying like, hey, maybe instead of building bombs and fucking shit to kill people, maybe we can start figuring out how we're going to mitigate this crisis that's going on. And, I'm sure that there's going to be people who are going to be in denial. There's going to be military state type people who are going to want to like throw us in prison and try to make an example out of us. I mean, I think that it definitely won't be an easy trail for any of us dragging through this shit, which some people think is pointless, by the way, and I'd come and join you if I could with your, your shenanigans outside of there. I'm surprised to hear that you've left Seattle. I've partly been thinking about moving north to try to escape the heat of Los Angeles, because we've literally been like hot, like stay inside hot. And, it's crazy. I always think about how Dan talks about this tribal mentality. And I think a lot about it because I live in a city, and I think, I try to talk to people about it. We always talk about how you try to go out there and talk about it. It's one thing when you're on this call with you, people who are believers that there is a fucking crisis. Excuse my language. Good things Miles is in here. Just kidding, Miles. We love you. But this tribe mentality, I think Jamie said it right. I mean, there's people out there that are really going to be willing to cope with this. It takes years. I've probably just gone through 2 years of thinking constantly about this every day. And to come to awake to the fact that you have to sort of accept your own death and everybody's death, because it may very well be coming, makes it a lot easier to cope on a regular basis and try to do something positive. But I guess when Dan talks about kind of overcoming this tribalness and trying to get everybody to wake up and expecting there's not going to be violence and fighting at the end of the world, I don't know if I see that. I mean, I literally think there's these people who are in denial, and they're going to be the ones who are going to freak out psychologically at the end. And it's a large percentage, at least 20%, 30% of the population who you can talk to them about this. They will not listen to you. And when it snaps, they are going to freak out, and maybe they will commit suicide. Maybe they will be like, I'm not going down without my family. They'll whip out the gun and start shooting the family members and then themselves. Maybe it is to go out into the streets and start burning down buildings and just causing mayhem and destruction, especially if they have no kids. I have a kid now, so I see a reason for hope in the future. And if you don't have kids, if you're a homeless person in the streets, you are disconnected. You hate this society more than ever. I'm not even a homeless person in the streets. I already hate this whole dystopian nightmare that I live in and wake up in every day. And I guess I didn't jump on. I just kind of jumped on here to bring some reality into the mix. I think it's good that we're all here talking about this and preparing ourselves for the worst. But and I think that maybe, hopefully, we can get people like at Microsoft to wake up, people within the government to wake up, people who, and at a point, as much as we maybe would want to hold people responsible, if people can instead of being held responsible, can step up to the plate and do something about the situation and finally say, fine, we'll build carbon sequestration plants, and we'll, build satellites to block the sun out, and we'll start trying to make this process go the right direction, then maybe we have a chance. So I think, having little groups of people in each area trying to go and talk to people, like Jamie said, that sort of matter. I recently was on the Greenpeace ship, and I was trying to talk to activists on there of the biggest problems are the methane is leaking out now. We need to refreeze the Arctic or we actually need to have people go in, instead of saying stop drilling, we need to be saying get the methane before it leaks into the atmosphere. I mean, the message needs to be different, so people don't fully understand the crisis that we're going through. And I mean, living it on a regular basis, knowing it, and seeing that there's so many people in denial, but people are definitely waking up. These fires, it gives everybody an opportunity to sort of comment, just and not berate people necessarily, but just sort of say, like, look, shit is bad. If you want a better solution or you want a better future, you need to wake up and apply real pressure. Stop driving a fucking car. All these different things that you can do, but it's not going to be the simple solutions of recycling and changing your light bulbs anymore. I mean, and so I guess I'll be quiet now. It's good to see all y'all again. I may have to dip out, unfortunately, but I love you. I wish you guys the best of luck on your thing at Microsoft. I'm going to stay tuned to make sure that goes well. Let me know if I can do anything to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. All right. Dan's up next, followed by Alice, followed by Alex, and then Victoria. I'll keep track. And Adam, are you? What do you? Are you up next? Are you up next? Also? Let's see. Did I miss you, Adam, buddy? Adam. I'm sorry. I got that mixed up with. I got that. Okay. So Adam is after Dan. So Dan, Adam, Alice, Alex, and then Victoria. Sorry about that, Adam. I had convoluted that with your book comment. So anyway, back to Dan.
Okay, so just a few comments, kind of taking off from some of the things that have been said. Jamie, Jason, also trying to respect what you said in the beginning, Alice, which, let's try to be focused on solutions. So here's some things that come to my mind. What I was going to just bring up, and I'm just going to mention it quickly as a solution. There's an issue of the languages around the world, which is connected to tribal solidarity. And to be able to have people who speak different languages, Chinese, Hindi, Urdu, in the Indian, Pakistan area, to have an ability to translate. It would be great if I could have a conversation with someone who speaks Chinese and we could have, sort of the translation be instantaneous so we could actually carry on a dialogue. I think that's something which would be really helpful. Now to go to, the tribalism and the deterioration aspects, just and I'm bringing this up to make points. I don't intend to, it's not like I'm trying to bum everybody out or bring people down here. I saw two articles which, and I hope I'm not repeating something I even brought up last week. I can't remember, but I came across two articles recently. One was about this young American couple, Caucasian couple. They look like, I think they were maybe in their late 20s, early 30s. And they were taking a bicycle ride around the world in order to show that evil doesn't really exist in the world. And what happened was I guess things went pretty well until they bicycled into, I think it was Tajikistan, which is a former Turkic Islamic republic that was part of the Soviet Union. And they encountered ISIS in Tajikistan, and they were killed. So, so what I'm going to kind of hook up with that, there was also an article that was out there that I came across where it was talking about ISIS and how ISIS was training their young men, and in some case, or boys or girls or, young people, that they needed to get trained to become competent in preparing human meat. In other words, they were talking about exercising cannibalism towards people who are not true believers. In other words, that is something our tribe, in this case, the Islamic fundamentalist ISIS, Al-Qaeda, whatever tribe, if you're part of us, and then this is what we need to do. This is morally justified. And if you're a member of other tribes, you just simply are going to be literally prey under certain conditions where we do not have adequate supplies of food. And what I think needs to be, this is something which, kind of everybody kind of knows is a potential outcome, all sorts of very dystopian, grim things. But I do think as a solution to that, to try to, stave it off regardless, it is necessary to discuss this kind of thought process and to talk about it on a meta level. In other words, human beings do have a choice here. We can decide at this point in time, while everything is still, it's bad, but it's still basically holding together, and we have normalcy still prevailing in many parts of the world. People need to think about, how do you want to respond to certain conditions? And what does that mean to you in terms of your own sense of morality and ethics? And to highlight the fact that, I've mentioned this, there's a book that came out recently, I may have mentioned it before, it's called Virtuous Violence, by a guy named Alan Fisk, and there's a co-author. And really the theme of the book is that most of the violence that ever takes place in this world is what they call virtuous violence. In other words, it's expected violence that you're supposed to perform on behalf of yourself, your family, and your group in order to be acceptable to the group. Whether that is, within street gang organizations, police, military, it's all over the place, where you are, we have honor killings going on from certain point of view of certain cultures. Now is the time to be able to discuss these very obvious problems and to get people to start thinking about, how do you want to be? Do you want to go, Mad Max, Soylent Green, et cetera, or do you want to be prepared to, on a moral, ethical plane, kind of a stoicism perspective, be prepared to cope with whatever you have to go through. And again, I'm just saying that right now, the way that people are in the world, it is all divided up into very, very strong tribalistic enclaves. A lot of it has to do with language. In Japan, it's Japanese, and they have a real sense of Japanese tribe. In China, it's Chinese, the Middle Kingdom. They have a great sense of we're Chinese. And you can take it all around the world to here in America, where we have a good portion of the population, which is about America first, et cetera. So this is something, as things start to fall apart, there always is a regression to tribalism. We do have the opportunity now to start discussing these things and to talk about ways to preclude them actually playing out in real time. People can learn to be brave in a stoic sense. That is something which is very, very possible. And I just want to throw it out there. I think that it's something which is necessary and part of that it needs to be interwoven in to other issues. And one, this is my final thing. And when there is a platform that is functioning in an effective way, it would be good to have a quick ability to, say somebody puts out an idea. I just put out an idea. And then that idea could quickly be hit with potential constraints to actually implementing that. What are the constraints? What would hold back maybe what's a good idea? And then to have quickly other solutions available to remove constraints if in a consensual way something is perceived by pretty much everybody. That sounds good. Let's do that. Let's try to make that happen. And one more final to the final. I was reading again this book by James Lovelock, and again the title of it is kind of escaping me. It's the last one that he did, and it has a lot of very interesting information in there. And one of the things that he talks about from his point of view is that it was really regrettable that that nuclear power was essentially taken out of the equation of potential energy use. And he goes through all sorts of arguments, kind of scientific arguments as to why it could have worked a lot better, it should have, etc. And what he's sort of, James Lovelock, who does feel that climate change is pretty much out of control, is coming from a point of view where we've had all sorts of alarmist kinds of things go on in the past about nuclear power, about various issues with the ozone layer, which he was a pioneer in being able to solve that problem. But he goes through all of these things that have happened in the past. And what it brought to my mind was how many people, again, well-educated people, for a good piece of time have probably viewed abrupt climate change as, it's just another hysteria, which if we were to actually go with it, we're going to be really sorry about it, in the end. And so again, that's something which probably needs to be addressed, because it may be a constraint on people being able to go forward. What is the difference between arguments concerning abrupt climate change and maybe arguments concerning, I think he brought up, what was it? The use of a pesticide to kill off mosquitoes that cause malaria. And the argument was, well, this pesticide is no good. We have to stop it. When they did that, then you had these huge outbreaks of malaria in various parts of the world. So that this kind of consciousness, I think, has been there, but it appears like we're now in unprecedented territory. And I think that it would be good to be able to attack or bring up reasons why what's happened in the past may not be so applicable here. Okay, I've taken a lot of time. Sorry about that. I'm going to go ahead and mute out.
All right, thank you, Dan. Up next is Adam, followed by Alice, followed by Alex, followed by Victoria, followed by Jamin. You go ahead, take that. Oh, and Victoria, why don't you go ahead, jump in, Victoria.
I've got an appointment. I just wanted to say thanks, and thanks to everybody on here. This is always just such a wonderful thing to get on and see all the people who care. And I have to go, but I look forward to seeing you all again. And thank you, Jamin, for keeping on doing it.
Feel free to make any points you want to make, since you gotta run soon. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Victoria?
No, I just wanted to just reiterate some of the things that we talked about. I think I mentioned last week about being in Medford, Oregon, putting gas in a car, wearing a mask, and people there telling me, no, this is just, we always have fires every year. It was one of those things where I think it was Alex was saying that you think that it's obvious, and you all think it's obvious, and I think it's obvious, but to argue with someone wearing a mask is, but at any rate, thank you all. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Victoria. Great to see you. See you next time. All righty, back to Dan, followed by Alice. Go ahead, Dan.
No.
Sorry, not Dan. Adam. Sorry about that.
Okay. Well, I hear a lot of people talking about the horrific conditions that'll happen in the collapse, and so as people, as the collapse happens, people want to stampede, but I think that there's a lot of reasons why we should be positive and have hope to get out of this. And I wrote a paper which I just sent out to everybody called Case for Hope. And that lists 33 reasons. And they're good reasons. And so, I mean, and we hear like people like Guy McPherson, he presents this, topic, and he comes back and he says, well, we're alive now, so make the best of your life now. But the reason people are like deer in the headlights is because they don't have any hope. So there's no hope. And I think there's a big difference between having no hope and having hope. So I think we need a positive outlook. And what we need is a plan and a meeting place to get together. And I see the meeting place as collective intelligence. And the plan that I see that is, of course, the Road to Life plan that I've been working on. And I wanted to say something about money, because it's really thought of as people just kind of, they hear the word, well, we're going to, and the Road to Life plan involves the end use of all money, and that clicks with something in our brains that says just to dismiss the idea. But when the collapse happens, the banks will be closed. I mean, you won't be able to buy bread. If you could, you couldn't spend enough money to get a loaf of bread. I mean, so what we have to do is build in virtual reality. We have to build a new way of living, and it's not that we're like the Road to Life plan isn't a plan to take over the government. It's a plan that will be built in virtual reality on collective intelligence, and then when the government collapses, when they throw in the towel, we'll have something to fall back on. So we can create this, and so that'll give hope to people, because the first thing we have to do is refreeze the Arctic. And that, if we can refreeze the Arctic, that'll buy us some time. I mean, we have to do a whole bunch of things. They're saying we have to, reduce our carbon emissions. Well, how do we reduce our carbon emissions? We also have to take care of the global dimming problem. Well, these problems can be addressed in collective intelligence in these teams, these topic teams. And then they can be presented to the people with the best options, and then the people get to decide. I think we don't have the right to give up. I mean, people are saying all over that that it's hopeless and stuff like that. We're the last generation. So all life, if we just give up, not only are our sons and daughters going to die, but all life that's been on the earth for millions and millions of years is going to be wiped out. And then what'll happen, what our scientists are telling us, is that the nuclear power plants will melt down, and it'll burn up our atmosphere and turn our planet into Mars, basically, an orb like Mars. Well, I just sent out this paper with 33 reasons why we can things we can do. We just need to get organized. We need a plan and get organized. And so if we have the means to get out of this, and so if we have the means, we need to start working, and we need to do this immediately, get to work on it. And we need a focal place to come to, and that is collective intelligence. Because you know, to stop now while we have the means, to just throw up our arms and give up, is the biggest act of immorality that mankind could ever commit, ever, in my opinion. Mute it out.
That's really beautiful, and I think it's my turn to talk. So, starting with what Jason had said, and we're back on it, this whole hope thing, and I think within the collective intelligence, like you rightfully said, the responsibility we each have of being positive, hopeful, productive in a balanced way. And I do come back to the sense that not only is it a intellectual revolution and a scientific tech revolution, but it's also an artistic revolution of experiencing again, fearlessly experiencing things. We talked this morning about the fact that the next generations can now also sit back a little bit and relax and have the older generations step in and take responsibility for all the actions that were taken, that now children have all this anxiety and suicidal thoughts because they only see bad news and nothing being done. That's what we mentioned this morning at breakfast within our family, of how this call of action. And as a artist, because I guess that's where I sort of step in with music and visual arts, I know the impact that we have. So I think this collective intelligence is definitely a solution for immediate environment and just the energy level. And I talk a lot about energy. I'm studying acutonics right now, which is an incredibly very quick impact on the body through energy flow. I myself was really skeptical about it, and had it done on myself and was told that I have this ability to do it myself. And so I want to do it on a large scale. I'm just talking briefly about these various projects that are coming to me through all of this, and that I've been sharing with a lot of people, and a lot of people have been receptive about it, who are normally quite skeptical. So I think there is a need for cleansing and just realigning and being able to think, okay, yes, the world could blow up, become Mars, and I agree 100%. It needs to stop, and it needs to be addressed on this collective platform, which really, like, the scientists, the law enforcement, people of power who want this change work alongside artists, because I do think that artists can, throughout history, really influence and make people feel again, make people emotional again about it. So I think that's where we all put our heads together and we start working together. And the performing has just been proof of that, because people, instead of just getting a bunch of information and hearing and listening, and like we're doing right now, they get to see it. And so it gives them an immediate reaction. And I have it when I sing. People who normally wouldn't have an emotion towards this, so why I'm mentioning this is that I want to say that this is also a way to make big strides, big steps towards finding solutions. It's through the arts. And so not to forget that that it's an important part of this revolution, that if people feel again and see things that make them not so much think, because people are saturated and are disconnected. They don't read anymore. There's fewer and fewer, people who really reflect on things. So we have to hit it with emotion. And like we said with Jason, a lot of people maybe don't, you know, I just was talking with a friend, he was saying, well, people don't care again, and you know, people are stupid. And so yes, that's being said, okay, a lot of people don't care, but I want to focus on those, like all of you who do care, and I know that the rest will follow. A lot of people don't want to have to think. Well, we'll think for them, and that's fine. So yeah.
Great stuff. So next up is Alex, followed by me. But even before I go, I'm going to give Jamie a chance because I don't know if he's been able to text into the chat window since he's mobile. So take it away, Alex.
That was some good stuff. It made me think. I don't think I have anything to say. I think my comments were said. That was a good comment by Alice and a good comment by Adam. I think of, I'll just say, I'll tell a quick story. I'll try to make it quick. Something I really like enjoying watching is, so it took me a year to get just psychologically go through this whole the world's ending kind of thing or whatever you want to call it. But something I like enjoying a lot is I watch guys' videos, but I really like the Q&A segments. I don't know if anyone's ever watched the Q&A segments. And it's not because I learn anything interesting or that really anything gets said that I don't know, because after like whatever 6 months, a year of reading the science, you get it. But everyone who asks a question basically is saying a question in a state of denial. So there's 5 states of denial. What is it? The last one's acceptance. The first one's bargaining. I think that's wrong. But anyway, the 5 states of denial. And it's just really interesting to see where everyone is in that question, in that Q&A, because everyone is basically going through hospice. And a lot of people, it's their first time. So it's really interesting seeing them interacting with it, just like when I talked to a guy for the first time. And if anything, I think the understanding will happen. I just think, sadly, when the understanding hits kind of the tipping point, quote unquote, it will be when a lot of us don't have water or food anymore. And that will just, that won't be, we won't be able to solve the problem just because everyone will just care about where they're getting their water from. Anyway, that's it.
Good stuff. Really great comments, everyone. Jamie, did you have anything you wanted to add? If so, feel free to jump in at any point while I'm talking. Oh yeah, and then Dan after me and Jamie. Go ahead, Jamie. Mm-hmm.
I would just want to add that everything that's been said here is really on point. And if we go back 40, 50 years when this problem was born, maybe a little longer, but about 50 years ago, it was the nerds in the 50s that took the beatings in the hallways. And, you know, the geeks and all that funny stuff, Square Pegs, the TV show. Well, fast forward to today, and they win. They're in charge of the world. So this is why we should hand it off to them. And if I am exceptionally positive about this, because I don't have time not to be, I assume our species can solve this. I assume we're going to try. And if, in fact, we don't, then that's what's going to be the outcome. But I'm not going to be Eeyore and mope around about it. What Alice said is 1,000% right. The money people have had their chance. The matriarchal men have had their chance. You know, the government controls things. Look at Aung San Suu Kyi, who was on house arrest. She got out. They thought she was going to save Myanmar. And it's worse now than ever, because she wants to do good, but that country can't get out from underneath its government. So what Alice said is correct. If we get through this rabbit hole, it's a big if, I'm assuming we're going to make it. I might not make it, but the species will. If we get through the rabbit hole, it's the Alices that are up at bat. The artists, the musicians, the thinkers, the prayers, the lovers, the gardeners, they get to become the next Silicon Valley, because we've tried everything on Earth, including raping the Earth, and it's still here, and it still just wants to be Eden. So Alice's point couldn't be more accurate. Now, to Dan's point briefly, the government, there's 2 forms of government. No one knows about it unless they work inside the government. There is what looks efficient and there is what is efficient. Occasionally, the government is efficient and we can get a man on the moon, or a space station can be put together on a task force of collaboration. Task force of collaboration work because each government agency keeps the other ones accountable and they actually do their job. Most of the governments in our world, certainly this government in the US, I'm intimately aware of its layers, is an exercise in inefficiency. But they look efficient because they only tackle the problems with relatively easy solutions. They do not tackle problems that can't be solved. Those get to go to think tanks. And when there's a solution, the government tackles it. So we have to create the think tank at Microsoft and to bring in a lot of Alices, because there's going to be a lot of math people and geeky people there. When we got to turn this ship around, and we can do it. And so if and when we can turn this thing around, that's when the government will become instrumental, because they're very, very good at killing people and suppressing people. So if we can get the high-thinking people that want to fix this on the job, and the Alices in the room, and the Alexes and the Adams, to impute their requirements for what we're going to look like on the other side, we can let the government go kill cannibals and all these organizations that are going to want to rise up, and hopefully the government will find their niche and protect us while we are building the ark. Worst case scenario, none of that happens. But that's how I see the government's role. I just don't see the government stepping up here and saying this is a priority one. I mean, if the government is taking a payment from SpaceX so Elon Musk can put a car in orbit, that is not exactly a priority that I can see helps my granddaughter. But it helps somebody. So I think that my belief and hopes here is that we're going to get into the right circle of people sooner or later. And I think it's close. I think it might happen in 2 weeks. It might happen in 2 months, but it's about to happen. And then we focus like crazy on getting the solutionary activities together. And when that ship starts to sail, it becomes the new Twitter, and the government will slowly ebb towards us and say, how can we help? We can say, you got to go get rid of those Al-Qaeda guys. They're really clogging up the thing. They're burning oil fields, whatever. So that's just my take on that. I'm going to mute.
Great comments, Jamie. My goodness, this has got to be one of the best social clubs ever, if not the best. So I just wanted to add, I wanted to respond to a question Dan had posed, or really a comment about different languages being used and auto-translate so that anyone can talk to anyone. That technology is quite mature today, and so that will definitely be deployed. And I'm glad you raised that, because there's with a lot of our discussions and the action we're taking the first week of September, there's a lot of focus on the Microsofties and the tech sector. I just really want to emphasize what we're calling on the tech sector to do is to build the platform for collective intelligence, but then that platform will be used by all of humanity, starting with, the billion or so people that Jamie noted who get it, and who get that we have, a serious problem and need to do something about it. But, ultimately all of humanity will be able to use the platform to co-create solutions and implement those solutions and better understand the problems, etc. So let's see. I think, is it Dan who's up next? I think Dan is up next. Okay. And then, Adam asked, will the platform be secure so it could be used to vote from? Absolutely. In fact, voice and vote is one of the, parts of the collective intelligence platform that we've been ideating about, envisioning. Doesn't exist yet, but absolutely, we want everyone to be able to vote. And that would actually help spawn a new form of governance, not necessarily government, but governance. So something gets proposed, it gets put up to vote, and then we act accordingly. So great stuff. All right, take it away, Dan.
Okay, this will be my last input today. So one thing I wanted to mention in terms of young people mixing music, singing with the messages. I can't remember what it was called. I think I encountered it somewhere on Facebook, but and I'm going to say I forget the name of the organization. Maybe what comes to my mind probably wasn't the real name, something like Sunshine Collective. But they were these young people who were protesting against Governor Brown of California. And they were in, maybe they were in the Capitol, but they're in the building. And they kind of mixed their presentation up with, there was this young, I think he was probably, couldn't have been, he must have been in his 20s. Anyway, he would sing beautiful. It was actually very, very moving. And then somebody would come up to the microphone and start talking about their experiences or what needed to be done. And it was a very powerful, I thought, kind of a presentational form. I mean, I really felt it was pretty moving, pretty effective. And I did think the ability to sing in the way that it was happening was really helpful. The other thing, and this is kind of it's sort of picking up what Jamie was just saying about, you know, the government, etc. And I know I remember way back, it kind of jarred my memory, one of these early social clubs, and in other forums sometimes, you know, when I talk about my experiences working for the city of Chicago Department of Public Health, and how I remember again, you know, in life, I've encountered so many disappointing, traumatic experiences as I was going, you know, through life, career, etc. You know, kind of sort of getting, you know, hit upside the head and told, hey, this is how the real world is. This is how we play here. And if you want to continue to work, you better get on board or else, you know, take a hike. And so back in, I think it was 08, 09, the city of Chicago received, the Department of Public Health received a huge influx of federal money to get set up for a potential bioterror attack. And we had all these big meetings, and people were shown, you know, impressive videos and, you know, lots of public information kind of, you know, talk and everything. And then when it got right down to, you know, what kind of role are you going to play? And I was enlisted into being, at that time, one of these individuals who would be in kind of one of the, there was going to be a bunch of triage centers to deal with a bioterror attack, you know, where people who thought they were sick, infected, could go to. And what I was told I could do is, and what I was expected to do, because I was a clinician, was to be standing right up in the front with a mask on and, you know, having checklists of sending people either directly to the doctors and nurses or to another room to kind of wait. And I remember, and they always, and by the way, in all the examples that they would give us, they always used anthrax, which was the one agent that was not contagious. And they, you know, and they would say things to us like, well, don't worry, you know, we're going to have some medication for you and your family when you show up. And I remember asking a question, you know, it was just simply, hey, if you expect me to stand up there and expose myself to what's probably not going to be anthrax and possibly get very, very sick or die, are you going to offer to us an insurance policy so that, you know, our loved ones have something to fall back on when there's not the money coming in? And of course, the answer was essentially no. That's not something which is going to happen. And as a matter of fact, as you know, I caught on fairly quickly, actually nothing was even happening. You know, in other words, after the big show, you know, the three-ring circus in the beginning, it just petered out, and there'd be occasional meetings. Somebody would, you know, write something about how to deal with, you know, trauma victims in some sort of an event. And so if people in the city of Chicago, and maybe it's different since I retired a couple of years ago, maybe they need to realize that if an event happens, you're going to be in real serious trouble. You know, and so it's one of these things where consciousness on the part of people needs to be raised in a serious way. And we also we just have to respect the, as was pointed out earlier, we have to respect the selfishness, the greed, the inability to, you know, see beyond what can I take care of today for myself, etc. Because these things need to be pointed out to people. You know, it's kind of like, you know how you are a human being. You're no different, you know, than anybody. We're all the same in a way. And you know what you're likely to do. You know what you do with your time right now. But, you know, it's time to start thinking about maybe how you could be your better self. You know, you could really elevate yourself in ways that maybe you haven't had the opportunity to be before. This situation might allow you to, you know, be really the finest person your potential could allow you to be. And I think, yeah, that needs to be really stressed. So that's it. That's my last input. And I look forward to seeing you all next week.
I quickly wanted to thank you. That was really beautiful. And I think just to finalize this, we've been miseducated after having had such knowledge. When I talk to my neighbors in Spain who are in their 80s, they've taught me so much on how to plant, how to, you know, milk a goat, you know, the basics. And I think holistic remedies, all that information, all the people who've been making money off of us, Monsanto, I mean, the list goes on, giving us cancer through food. And like we said, we live in the Garden of Eden. Our planet is perfect. Nature is perfect in every way with all its imperfections, such as us human beings. We have to be kinder to ourselves. We have to be kinder to each other. We have to diversify ourselves, mixing cultures, language. I mean, we talked about all these key essential points. And again, to elevate our spirits, I agree 110%. I do believe that through this platform, we'll be able to re-educate ourselves. We'll be able to share the information, this wealth of knowledge that we've had, that we've developed, because we're not that bad. We have been developing exquisite, beautiful technologies like nature has. And we have evolved. We've been, you know, through many, many trials. And we all know we don't want war. We don't want segregation. We don't want violence. And we want to heal, and we want to help each other heal and heal this earth. So that being said, I really believe that all of us together with this platform, with this new information, transmission, sharing, we're really going to make a lot of, you know, I'm losing my words, but yeah, I think we're really going to make it happen and re-educate ourselves,
Okay, I'm going to say finally goodbye. Great seeing everybody. I look forward to getting together with everybody next week. Take care, everybody.
You too, Dan. You too, Dan. Thanks so much. All righty. Well, this has been an awesome meeting. Any other comments before we wrap? Jamie, Adam, Alice?
So much. Thank you, everyone. It's been wonderful. Filling ourselves with hope, even though we know the reality is really harsh. And I look forward to our next meeting and bringing more to the table that we'll have had evolved even more.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Can we talk a minute after the meeting?
Oh, sure. Yeah, after we stop broadcasting. All right.
I'm going to call.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, go for it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you. Jamie, did you have anything to add?
I would just add quickly, the circumstances are so dire. It is a foolish waste of time for me to not cling to hope, because the circumstances are so bleak that hope is the only way we can get through it. And if we're wrong, we're wrong. But I'm going to hope till the end. I'm going to fight. I'm going down in flames. That's just the way it's got to be. You can't just give up. We are the cancer on this earth that is now eating ourselves. And we can undo that. It is not going to be easy, but it can't be done without hope, love, and cooperation. Period. That's all I have to say.
Beautiful. All right. Great comments, everyone. With that, we're going to stop broadcasting and sure we can visit for a bit after the broadcast. All right. So thanks everyone for participating. Thanks so much everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time on the Social Club at the End of the World. Thank you.